Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from the Bill Austin Radio Studio at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism in beautiful downtown Phoenix. This is lucky episode number 13 of Season 4 of the Harris Highlight Show. Join me this week as our college football expert and UC Davis Aggies superfan Josh Schaefer, our college football analyst, Lyle Goldstein, with our executive producer, Brady Klein.
What's going on? Can you hear me?
I am your host for the evening, Blake Harris. I can hear you.
You can.
I can hear you. I just can't hear any of the sound effects again. I think what happened last time is it was something with my talkback mic.
Yeah, all the talkback's off, so you should be good. But you can hear me, correct? Because their mics were...
I can hear you.
All right,
play a sound effect or two, and we'll see if I can hear it.
Oh, my goodness.
I hear it vaguely, but I...
He can hear it. That one's loud. That one's loud for me.
I can faintly hear it, so
love you, man.
that's unfortunate. But I can clearly hear mine, so I don't know what's going on.
Hey, who knows?
The Bill Austin Radio Studio is having some major problems the last few weeks with
We do know there's no delay, though.
That is true. There's no delay because BK fixed it.
You're welcome. Nobody said thank you to me by that.
Thank you.
I should receive an award. So
Thank
you know
you,
what?
Brady. Thank you.
Or suspension.
This is mine now.
So
I'm taking this.
hopefully later in the show I can hear the music, because I always like hearing the sound effects. I like hearing the tunes, especially for the pick'ems. I always like hearing the music. So hopefully that can get fixed so I can hear something, or else he's just gonna be playing a bunch of sound effects, and I'm gonna have no idea what's going on. But that just sounds like every show for the Harris Highlight Show. Before we talk about some college football content, guys, we are now in the semifinals for our fantasy league. Now, I'm not going to get it on my computer because I don't like the fantasy league on the computer. I like it much better on our phones. So I'm going to load it up on our phone. So currently, to finish the season, the final standings were Josh at 10-2,
Woo!
myself at 7-5,
Woo!
Brady at 4-8,
Woo!
and Lyle at 3-9.
Yeah.
Boo.
Dead silence.
Why does Brady get a boo for one more win?
Because it's one more,
It
Lyle.
is one more win. So now we are officially in the playoffs, boys. I'm going against Brady. Lyle is going against Josh. Currently now this can change with the projections. Josh is projected to beat Lyle 253 to 225.
Did that just update today?
And I am projected to beat Brady 240 to 211. But again, these are just projections. They mean absolutely nothing.
That's true.
Let me set a lineup real quick.
Oh, that is... dang it. No, you got people in the lineup.
Cool.
It's just my team's better.
Hooray.
Now, for those of you that didn't recall, we are doing a four-man highlight, or a four-man college football fantasy league, and the winner of this league, so we'll find out after next week's matchup, gets to host the show once in the spring, or the winter, whatever you want to call it. So if I win, well... There you go.
That's a serious thing. Do you get anything if you win?
Here's sound effects now. Fantastic. That's true. I mean, I just assumed I'd win, so I'd get to host anyway. But if
does the loser
win,
still have to write an essay about why their team was bad?
The loser has to write a one-page essay, read it on the show. Brady will get the nice sad music queued up when they read it. You don't have to get it up now, but this. And they have to write a page as to why they came in last place and why their team was the absolute worst.
Lyle,
No excuses.
Do you want to give us a preview of what it's going to look like now, Lyle?
This is good practice for him.
Just pretend it's your bar mitzvah, Lyle.
Very funny. No. I'm going to save it for the show unless I win my 2 in a row like I've been predicting all season.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. So that's happening this upcoming week. So fantasy playoffs. And speaking of college fantasy playoffs, I'm also going to be playing Lyle in our ASU league. Unfortunately, Josh and Brady did not make the playoffs for that league.
High five through the glass, Josh.
No, I am so mad about that league.
So the thing is,
so mad about
Josh
that.
going into the final week needed one win. He just needed to win, and he was in. and he put up the second or it was the second or third most points on the
Second
week.
most.
It was the second most points on the week. He ended up losing because a certain Trojan just couldn't get, what was it, 7 more points?
I was down like 30 points. SC just clobbers Cal, and Mike Pittman gets me like 39 points. He comes all the way back, but SC's beating Cal so badly that they put in the second string offensive players at the start of the fourth quarter. So Mike Pittman got me 39 points in 3 quarters, and I lost by like 6. Like, I could have won that game.
And he missed out on the playoffs just by that much.
And my tight end did nothing. So upset.
A valiant effort, Josh, but maybe next year.
I still had that game against Lyle. I should have been in.
Well, you're not, unfortunately. There's always next year.
I'm so mad.
So, Lyle and I are battling it out this week, and we'll keep you guys up to date in regards to that league as well.
I'm
But
so thrilled to be following that matchup.
Yep,
Blake.
me too.
oh, thank you. As I'm sure everyone else is. Everyone else is dying to hear. For those of you listening, go to Twitter right now and let us know who you think's going to win that matchup at the HH Show
How
underscore.
can they know? They've never seen who's on each team.
Yeah, they just who do you think's going to win?
That's just so dumb.
Personality-wise,
No.
who's going to win?
Who do you think?
Personality-wise,
Who do you
I'm
think?
picking Lyle.
Who do you think is going to win between Lyle and I? Go to Twitter at the HH Show underscore. You don't have to know our teams. Just picture out any team you want. Who do you think is going to win?
You could
Let us
also
know.
comment on whether or not I should have been in the playoffs.
Also, yeah, if you think Josh should have been in the playoffs, let us know. What if it would have been the 4 of us in the playoffs for that?
That would have been so sick.
great. Thanks a lot, Brady.
That would
You
have been
met-
sick.
Didn't you come in last? I think you came
I'm
in
in
dead last.
I haven't set a lineup in 3 weeks.
Well, hey, that does happen. All right, let's move on to the college football playoff rankings. And guys, nothing happened.
Hooray. Something happened,
Well,
Blake.
game-wise, some things happened, but the ranking-wise,
Something still happened.
something still happened.
The
Something always
lads. The lads are in at number 23.
Yes, we will get to that in a bit. But nothing happened in the top 7. Everyone stayed. Penn State moved up to 1. Oklahoma moved up 1. Minnesota fell 2. And that's all there really is to say in the top 10. SC, they come in at 23 after not being ranked. I don't know what he's doing over there. SMU's in the top 25, and Iowa State, they're in the top 25. But aside from that, nothing. All right, the top 7 stays the same. I personally, when I tweeted out my rankings earlier a few days ago, I had Oregon above Bama just for the sole purpose that Bama lost Tua, and I did have Georgia at 3 just because I gave them the edge because they had a good win over Auburn. But overall, I think this is the correct top 4. This is the correct top 6, top 7. No surprises here. So, I mean, with no changes, guys, is there anything you really want to add or talk about for these updated playoff rankings?
I mean, it's I don't really have any complaints with it. I think that there wasn't anything really. I didn't expect anything to change, but what I think is worth pointing out is something that Kirk Herbstreit said tonight on the playoff revealing show was that Alabama should not be punished for Tua getting hurt. And I think we're obviously going to talk about the Tua injury later, but I think that's something that's worth pointing out every time. You ask it the first question on the show, and I answer, and you start drinking out of your Hydro Flask. Mute him for me, please, Brady.
Done.
Thank you. There's no reason to punish Alabama for Tua getting hurt, and from what we've seen out of Mac Jones so far, he's still a somewhat reliable quarterback. I mean, he hasn't really played anybody yet, and he's probably going to now, but I think it's worth pointing out that there's no reason Alabama should fall or suddenly no longer be in contention for the playoff without Tua.
Yeah, that's fine, and I think Alabama deserves to stay at 5. They still trounced Mississippi State this weekend, so there's no reason to drop them for that. They have to actually prove that they are a worse team without Tua before they get dropped, whether people believe they are or not. Other than that, the top 10 or even top 8 is fine.
Lyle, pop quiz. How do you spell Mississippi?
MISSISSIPPI.
You're always on it, Lyle. Great job. Great job. But I think I agree with what you said, Josh, is Alabama's still a really good football team, but they're not a playoff contending football team without Tua.
No, see, I said they still are.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
I thought
absolutely.
you said they weren't.
No. They absolutely should not be punished for Tua getting hurt.
I don't think they should be punished. I just don't think they will have the clutch factor that they've had in games of that magnitude going forth into a playoff or going into an SEC championship game or whatever realm they're going to be playing to try to get in for. I don't think they're going to be punished. I don't think they will perform as well.
Well, and you don't have Tua, and then you don't have Dylan Moses on defense. I mean, things kind of hurt for Bama right now, especially since the defense is really young and it's not
that's
the same.
That's not being punished. That's just how it works.
Yeah. I mean, they're just simply not as good without a couple of their best guys. That's just how it goes.
The replies are overwhelming. I mean, currently we have 47 replies that say I'm going to beat Lyle, and not one yet saying Lyle's going to win.
Don't believe that at all.
Yeah, I'm
go
kidding.
ahead.
I'm kidding. But I did turn to Twitter, though, and ask our viewers' thoughts on the rankings, which, by the way, if you want to get on the discussion, head on over to Twitter at the HHShow_. Let us know your thoughts on the playoff rankings. I'm going to read some of them before I get to my thoughts. Jack Beller, or Jack Bellar, he says, I think they got it right for the most part, but if I can make any changes, I would maybe drop USC or Iowa State for either Virginia Tech or Texas A&M.
You know what? Before we read any more, I'm fine with SC being in 23. I would rather see him at 25. But I think Jack's absolutely right here. I think it's about time we start giving Virginia Tech a little bit more respect. They have not a tough schedule, but I thought they played pretty well. They played Notre Dame tough, and they got a pretty decent win this past week. So I like Virginia Tech moving forward, especially if they're anywhere between 23 and 25.
I mean, ever since getting absolutely embarrassed by Duke, it was like a month and a half ago. You know, they've won 5 of their last 6, and their one loss was a 1-point loss to Notre Dame. So Virginia Tech, they've definitely been playing some good football. Some other mentions in our mentions. Andrew Koster, surprised that Bama didn't fall at all after Tua got hurt, simply because everyone was making it sound like the committee takes who is all healthy on a team into account when determining the rankings. Caleb says, how can Penn State, who has the same record as Minnesota, be ranked ahead of them if Minnesota won the game? If teams have comparable resumes, then head-to-head should matter. That goes with Michigan and Wisconsin as well, which is a good point. I mean, they did win, but Penn State overall does have better wins. They did beat Michigan, and they have some convincing wins. And I think their offense, or especially defense, I think they have one of the better defenses in the country, so that probably has a little bit something to do with it. Hesty says, not bad overall. Alabama can drop more without Tua. Kai says, accurate, wouldn't change anything in the top 6. I think no team outside of the top 6 right now has a chance to make the playoffs. Also, Alabama will definitely not make the playoffs. We'll be talking about that later on, if any of the teams outside the top 6 can potentially make it in. Personally, I think that they can, but we'll get to that in a bit. Tyler says the thing the committee can look ahead, they have to look at how Bama played last week, and which I think Lyle said it perfectly. They absolutely blew Mississippi State. Or it was Mississippi State or Ole Miss. It was
State.
Yeah, LSU was Ole Miss. They blew Mississippi State out of the water. And Tyler also said Florida should be above Minnesota. And then, again, this is the exact same thing that said a few questions ago about SC and Iowa State being ranked ahead of like A&M. So some good comments there. I overall think again that this is fine. With Bama, I did say that I dropped him one because of the Tua injury. That's not fair. Now I do think Alabama has a chance to make it. I do think they're still going to be a fairly good team. But obviously, when you're having a drop off from Tua to Mac Jones, we haven't necessarily seen them play a good enough team with Mac Jones to know how this is going to happen. It's going to be very interesting to see when Alabama plays Auburn, to see how Alabama plays against them, because Mac Jones has a nice, easy game this week against, I believe, Western Carolina University. So, I mean, that's essentially going to be a wash. So, I'm going to save it until Auburn. We'll see. I mean, if Alabama struggles against Auburn, that could be their way out. But if Alabama comes out and they absolutely dominate Auburn, they might have their ticket in. But for the most part, again, I really got no problem with these rankings. I thought Oklahoma moving up one spot was kind of a bit of a surprise, considering they had a 25-point comeback to undefeated Baylor, who the committee obviously still thinks very highly of, considering they only dropped one spot. And I think Minnesota also dropping 2 spots is noteworthy as well, because, I mean, for the most part, Iowa was kind of dominating most of that game. Minnesota came back and had a chance, but only dropping them 2 spots. So that shows the committee still is high on Minnesota. But overall, no complaints there. Something that is interesting, though, now, guys, Memphis is all of a sudden the leading way for the group of 5 schools. How about that?
Those 3 teams right there between Memphis, Cincinnati, and Boise State are all really close. So I don't know if there's a team that really stands out most for me, because if you're looking at the group of 5 schools, you have Memphis, Cincinnati, Boise State, 18, 19, and 20 respectively, and you've still got Appalachian State at 24, and then SMU at 25. So I think App State and SMU are pretty close, and I think that Memphis, Cincinnati, and Boise State are all really close. And honestly, like, I know we're probably not going to see anything like that with those three teams. I feel like we'll probably get some pretty decent bowl matchups out of them. I would love to see two of those teams meet up in a bowl game.
Well, here's the thing. Memphis plays Cincinnati the last week of the season.
That's true, too.
So that can battle itself out. And also, let me look at the rankings right here. Depending on how the Americans looking, the East is looking pretty... It looks like it's going to be Cincinnati coming out of the East. However, the West, I mean, Memphis, SMU, and Navy all are 5-1. There's a chance SMU, they can go to the American title game. They can beat Cincinnati, and SMU can be the team representing. So Boise State, they're in the driver's seat just because the rest of the schedule is so much easier. But
yeah.
This is going to be an interesting battle that's kind of going to be overlooked between like Memphis, Cincinnati, Boise State. I mean, I don't think App State has a chance just because they're so far back and they don't play anyone. But it's going to be interesting to see which one of these teams comes out on top because, again, I think I said this in last week's show, the American Conference is a very fun conference, and these are going to be some fun. It seems like every year the American title game is always insanely like high scoring. It's competitive. It's going to be good. So definitely stay tuned for the Memphis-Cincinnati game and whatever the American. So I think at this point, whoever wins the American title conference title game is going to be the representative in the New Year's Six Bowl.
Unless Boise State wins out.
That's true.
I mean, I guess it could go either way.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But aside from that, nothing really noteworthy to talk about in regards to the rankings. But it's time now, boys. We had a fun segment last week about scenarios. Now, there are very little scenarios that can happen now. Now, I guess you can technically say that Minnesota, my Minnesota Gophers are no more. And it was still a close game. It was a close game. How about this, though? Brady, I don't know if you saw what happened at the end of that game. The spread was Iowa 3.5. Iowa ends up winning by 4 because the Penn State kicker shanked an extra point with like 5 minutes left, and that ended up being the difference maker. Okay, gives me a thumbs up.
Were you talking to me specifically?
Yes.
I didn't hear what you were saying. I was dealing with stuff back here.
Okay.
I heard he missed an extra point.
Well, I said Brady. I did say Brady. Anyway,
okay.
So my Minnesota Gophers, it was a great game, but they came up just short. Now, technically, they are still, I guess you can say, in it because they do play Wisconsin, who's currently ranked 12th. They probably likely are going to be in the Big Ten title game against Ohio State. If they can win that, maybe they can find their way in there, but it's going to be tough. So for the most part, we have maybe these 7 teams. Penn State maybe has an outside chance. Oklahoma has an outside chance. Blah blah blah. LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson, those are pretty much the 3 teams that are going to be guaranteed, assuming they can just win out. Clemson, they went out, they're likely going to be in. LSU, even I think if they lose to Georgia, they're going to be in. Ohio State, they went out, they're in. So there's going to be one available spot for 4 to 5 teams, guys. We're going to go one by one and pretty much knock these teams out, go over how they can get in, what's going to happen. I'm just going to start with Georgia. Georgia, the only chance they have is to beat LSU. I think we all can agree if they beat LSU in the SEC title game, they're going to be in. Because looking at Georgia's remaining schedule, I mean, they got Texas A&M, Texas A&M, they've been playing some really good football, so that's not going to be an easy game. Georgia Tech, that's going to be an easy win. So if they can get these 2 and they can win the SEC title, they're going to be in. And if they lose any game, and then those 3, they're out. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I think if Georgia loses, they're probably done. But it also depends on how they lose and what Alabama's going to do at this point moving forward. Because I feel like there's really not much they can do. But it's tough. But yeah, I would say that if Georgia loses another game, they're probably out.
2 losses, you're done. Georgia loses again, they're done.
Yeah, pretty straightforward there.
Which is why this is so tough, because let's just say Georgia wouldn't have lost to South Carolina, they'd be undefeated. If Georgia and LSU were going to play in that SEC title game, both undefeated, I think there's no chance that both those teams would not, or there's no chance
both those teams would get in.
Cut. Take 2.
So that South Carolina loss really did hurt them. So Georgia, as long as they went out, beat LSU, they're in. This is when things start to get interesting, because Alabama, they're likely going to finish with 1 loss. That Auburn game is going to be a tough matchup, especially with no Tua. But Alabama, they're sitting nice at 5, because if Georgia loses to LSU, they're out, and Alabama can slide right in. Without playing in an SEC title game, guys, and with Alabama essentially having no quality wins except for maybe Auburn at the end of the season, I guess now Texas A&M, since they're ranked, is looking a little bit better. Do you think Alabama is going to have the edge on other again, I mean, oh man, I am stumbling on words, over some of these other teams that are behind them. How do you guys think Alabama will be one of the top 4 teams? Because as it sits now, they're sitting fine at 5. It's just that they got a lot of teams behind them that have a lot more impressive wins that are coming up for them.
Especially now with Tua out, they are nothing but a placeholder. If one of these Pac-12 teams wins the whole thing in the Pac-12, they win their conference title game, and they're still a one-loss team, they're jumping Bama. I think they're nothing more than a placeholder.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. And like I said, there's no reason to punish Alabama for Tua getting hurt, at least for now. However, moving forward, not only do you have to look at resume and do you have to kind of use the results and the eye test and everything like that, but when you use that eye test, they still don't have Tua. So when it comes down to it, if that is a serious factor that's going to put them in the playoff and they have no Tua, they're not in my opinion.
So here's a question, though. Let's just say for the Auburn game at the end of the year, Mac Jones just looks phenomenal. He comes out, he throws like 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. Bama beats Auburn by like 3 touchdowns. Does that then help Alabama's case that they can, that they can compete without Tua?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was going to say, what if it comes out and Mac Jones looks absolutely awful?
If Mac Jones looks bad and Alabama still wins, then it's tough, and it's not all on him.
Yeah,
it's not all on him at all. But say Georgia loses, which they probably do to LSU. Probably is harsh, but let's just say Georgia loses to LSU in the SEC title game, right? They lose that game. I think Georgia's out, obviously, with the 2 losses. But then in terms of putting Alabama in with Mac Jones, who looks really bad, versus potentially Penn State beating Ohio State, because I think if Penn State and Ohio State play, I think if Penn State wins, then they're back in the conversation. I'm not sure if Ohio State's out. So there's still a lot of things at play here, which is why I sincerely think that teams 1 through 8 still have a legitimate chance now. And I don't think it looked that way a few weeks ago, and I think it does now.
Which then brings us to the this is going to make things easier with 6 and 7 because one of these teams is going to fall out. Oregon and Utah. Now, Oregon does come to the Valley of the Sun for some prime time Saturday night football on ABC. The entire country gets to watch Oregon play the Devils, and I said this to our podcast chat earlier. I really hope children are not watching Saturday night because there are going to be some bad things done, we all think, to the Sun. But hey, anything can happen. ASU can upset them.
Oh, no! We suck again!
Perfect. So Oregon, Utah, assuming both those teams win out, they're going to meet in the Pac-12 title game. Now, I know they were also talking about this on the show earlier. They were saying that in order for Oregon or Utah to make it to the playoff, one of these teams is going to have to dominate. They're going to have to win this game. They were talking about the Ohio State game years ago where Cardell Jones, they won like 59-0. I don't think they have to do that, but if it's like a close game, someone wins by a field goal or 7, and you got Alabama, that might look good against Auburn. Do you think that's the Pac-12 still going to have the edge, or does like Oregon or Utah, just one of the teams have to come out and they just need to like give it to the other team? They need to like blow them out of the water.
I think the Pac-12 has the edge. I think that obviously the Pac-12 has gotten a really bad rap, and maybe not so much over the last couple of weeks. But here's the thing about the Pac-12: you see a lot of mediocre football teams based off of record, and I think that's really because you have all these teams that just beat up on each other. There's a reason why a 4-loss USC team is in the rankings this week, and I think it's because people recognize that the Pac-12 just beats up on itself, and it comes down from 5-5 ASU, who I think looks really good on paper sometimes, but then on the field doesn't. Cal's defense, I think, still looks good. Washington State has a good offense, but that's the problem with the Pac-12 is you still have these 2 teams that are at the top, and then you have everybody else just kind of beating up on each other, which is why I think that now with these teams getting wins over mediocre competition, Utah beating ASU but losing to USC, but also beating UW, and then kind of the same thing with Oregon up and down the list, losing to an Auburn team that I don't think is that good, still beating up on USC and then probably ASU. Who knows? I think the winner of that game has the edge over a 1-loss Alabama team without Tua, even if Mac Jones has a respectable day. I think I would give it to one of those 2 teams.
I just want to say this really quickly because I'm looking at the Pac-12 standings. Now, it's not going to happen because I don't think some of these teams are going to be able to win out, but there's an actual chance that every Pac-12 team can be bowl eligible.
I don't think that's possible, is it?
Well, It's probably not. Like, you're gonna have like Colorado beat like Washington and Utah. You're gonna have to have like Cal beat.
But what's
like,
UCLA's
Notre Dame.
record?
Well, UCLA currently is 4-6.
Yeah, so they can't because wait, no, oh yeah, they do have another game.
So
yeah.
I mean, they play SC and Cal. So if they,
Yeah, that's right.
Again, it's not going to happen. But as it stands right now, it is as mediocre as you can get. Because if you take Oregon and Utah out of the equation, you got 5-5, 6-4, 4-6, 5-5, 5-5, 7-4, 4-6, 5-5, 4-6, 4-6.
And that's kind of something we talked about at the beginning of the
Elite.
year. Well, that's something we talked about at the beginning of the year, and it's maybe the Pac-12 is better off having two really good teams at the top, one in each division, and then kind of everybody else, which is how it was for a long time, even before the Pac-12 even took over. All right, maybe you have Oregon in the north, or you have Washington in the north, but then you have SC in the south, or something like that, and that's what we get this year. We get a decent UW team, we get a decent USC team, but then everybody else is kind of mediocre at best, but you also have a clear favorite team in each division, Oregon in the north and Utah in the south. And I think that overall that's good for the conference.
Here's my thing on Oregon and Utah versus Alabama. I mean, it's a little bit different because they're ranked a tiny bit lower, but everybody had no problems jumping LSU to 1, right? When LSU beat Alabama, Ohio State still won, by 60-plus points or whatever it was. Yes, they were playing Maryland, but they had no problem jumping them. 6 versus 7, 2 versus 3. I mean, come on, tomato here. The Pac-12 is considered a Power 5 conference for a reason, aren't they? They are considered a Power 5 conference. And if 6 versus 7 play and 6 wins, I don't care by how much. If 6 wins by 10 points, so that being Oregon taking down Utah, I would think they would jump a team that doesn't play in a conference title game and straight up doesn't play. I'm with Josh. I would give the Pac-12 the edge.
The problem here, I think this is not going to happen, but it's worth considering. What happens if Oregon beats ASU and then they win their final game of the year and they're the clear-cut favorite in the Pac-12? They go to the Pac-12 championship, still with a chance to get into the playoff. But Utah goes on the road to Arizona, which I don't think means much, and then they also play Colorado at home. What are the chances that Utah gets upset and they're not in the Pac-12 championship anymore? Because USC has the tiebreaker.
Well,
because if that's the case,
that would hurt Oregon.
Yeah, that hurts Oregon, which is why Oregon needs Utah to win out.
Yeah.
Because if Utah has a hiccup and USC,
true.
USC plays UCLA. If USC goes to the Pac-12 championship and say Oregon beats USC, that's still not the resume that Oregon needs to get over Alabama in the playoff ranking.
So they need Utah to win, and then
for the
6
one
and
reason
7 need to
only.
stay.
Huh?
For the one reason only of the quality win test.
Yeah, and they have a
it.
couple of quality wins. Like if they beat ASU, I think ASU's fine. USC's pretty decent. They obviously played all the other teams in the north. That UW win is pretty good, but they're missing that one win that is going to put them over Alabama in the playoff ranking. And right now, that game is Utah.
Well, that's the problem. 2 hours ago, Oregon did not have a single win against a ranked team. Now SC's 23, they do, but that's it. Your only win is over a number 23 ranked team, which is fine.
And Utah has, it helps Utah now. So now their loss to SC looks a little better, but Utah doesn't have any wins over any ranked teams.
But considering when they do the playoff, when they did the playoff show, Utah's number one quality win was over Arizona State. Now, again, I think ASU's had a couple of hiccups. I think ASU is a pretty good football team. I don't think they're
still only 5-5.
Exactly. They're still only 5-5. And yeah, you have that win over Arizona State when ASU was number 1, completely healthy for the most part. Number 2, ranked 14th in the country, and number 3, they only had 1 loss. And ASU's a 5-loss team now, and things have really fallen off for the Devils. So that's why if your only quality win is a 5-5 team, you're rooting for the team in the other the other division in the Pac-12 to win out.
So for our own sake, let's just hope that Oregon and Utah can go undefeated and they can. Because I completely forgot about that. I mean, if Utah somehow does slip up to Arizona or Colorado, SC's all of a sudden in the title game, and there you go. A lot can happen there. Now, Penn State. Now, this is an interesting one with Penn State because they're sitting there at 8. They do play Ohio State this upcoming week, who's currently ranked 2nd in the country. If Penn State wins this game, all of a sudden, guys, Penn State's going to be in the Big Ten title game.
There's so much that can happen.
And all of a sudden now, Ohio State, they'll finish the season 11-1. They're not going to be in the Big Ten title game. You're going to have Penn State going against likely Minnesota. So Minnesota, well, actually, guys, if Minnesota loses to Wisconsin, Wisconsin's going to be in the Big Ten title game. Now, Minnesota's ranked 10. Wisconsin's, I think, ranked 11. So it's not really going to matter who plays who. But of all of a sudden now, Penn State, they're in the Big Ten title game. They just got a win against Ohio State, and now they beat Wisconsin's number 12. And if they can beat number 10, number 12 Wisconsin, Penn State all of a sudden has a legitimate chance to be in the playoff, especially considering their one loss on the year is going to be to Minnesota, who's going to finish the season in the top 15. They do have a win over Michigan, who's ranked, a win at Iowa, who's ranked, and, I mean, I guess you can say a decent win against Pittsburgh. So they have decent wins. This past week against Indiana, the best Indiana Hoosiers team probably ever. So, I mean,
in the last 25 years,
all of a
absolutely.
sudden, Penn State, if they can beat Ohio State, they're in the, because I think Penn State, if they go against Minnesota again, they're going to win. I think by multiple touchdowns. And I think if they play Wisconsin, they're probably going to win. So if Penn State can just get the job done against Ohio State this weekend, Penn State all of a sudden can sneak their way into the 4th spot.
Well, this is what they said when Penn State lost to Minnesota. Is, to be honest, they really haven't backtracked very far because everything is in front of them. I mean, if they had been undefeated up to this point and then they lost to Ohio State, they might even be in a worse position than they're in right now because they would be done. Exactly. But the fact that they lost to Minnesota, a team in the other, or the fact that they lost to Minnesota a little bit earlier, but the fact that they would still have Ohio State in front of them, who, if they beat them, they have the advantage over Ohio State. They already beat Michigan. And if they get into the Big Ten title game and win, they're still in. So, I mean, that Minnesota loss didn't hurt Penn State that much. And if they can find a way to win these couple games, everything's still in front of them.
We talked about that we've talked about it really all season, ever since that South Carolina-Georgia game. And it's that loss really screws up Georgia's schedule moving forward, but at the same time, you can also say you got the loss out early. Yes, it was a conference loss to a team that you should have beaten, and you literally could have won multiple times, and they didn't, and they lost, which is why it's such a bad loss. But also, you get the loss out early, and you still have everything in front of you to the point where you literally clinch the division. You are going to the conference championship with a chance to win and clinch going to the playoff. It's almost better to get that South Carolina loss out of the way for Georgia, and then moving forward to the SEC title game where you can play either, at the time, looking like LSU or Alabama, beat them and go to the playoff. But there's a legitimate, there's a legitimate way that teams 1 through 8 right now can all get into the playoff.
So we had to get through this with that one scenario. So let's say Penn State, they do this, they win out, they win the Big Ten title game. So is Ohio State then officially done? Because then you'd have Clemson, you'd have LSU.
They're in the same spot as Alabama right now.
You probably have them. Because I'm trying to think here. So LSU, Clemson, those would be guarantees. You would assume that Penn State would have to be a guarantee. So essentially then you're trying to make this 4th spot, an Ohio State team with 1 loss, or the winner probably. Because, at this point, I think you could throw Bama out. So would you give the edge to whoever wins the Pac-12 or Ohio State if it comes down to that? Which I think it will. Because, again, I think Bama literally they're going to sit there at 5.
If that scenario happens, I think Alabama's done, because then it comes down to the eye test whether you have a Power 5 conference champion with 1 loss versus a team that has 1 loss that did not play in the conference championship with a backup quarterback. And again, you cannot punish Alabama right now.
I'm saying I know. Ohio State. Or
I know. But that's the situation you have, is you have Ohio State with 1 loss who, at least if we're hypothetically looking at this, for me, passes the eye test. You're looking at a 1-loss Pac-12 Power 5 conference champion that, for me, passes the eye test. And then you have an Alabama team that is 1 loss and has a backup quarterback. So then it comes down to those 3 teams. And for me, it's Ohio State. If you're looking at those 3, regardless of who wins the Pac-12.
And you also take into account in that situation, Ohio State's already got a win over ranked Wisconsin, and then they'd have a win hypothetically over ranked Michigan. I'm assuming if they play Penn State, it's going to be like a 1-score loss if they lose in this scenario. So if that's what happens, I like Ohio State too. Yeah, Bama would be done in my opinion.
I still think unless just everything just blows up in front of them, Bama has no chance, which is why I thought it'd be interesting if Penn State can win out. What do you do with Ohio State? Because, again, it seems like it'd be so tough to all of a sudden just have Ohio State drop just because they lose one to Penn State at the end, especially since they're ranked 2. But that's why it's a scenario, and we'll have to wait and see.
What's tough for Alabama is I feel like at this point things are kind of out of their control, because the way that I see it is, again, I think LSU, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Bama, Oregon, Utah, Oklahoma, and Penn State still all have a legitimate chance of getting in. The problem for Alabama is with it being out of their control, I can see the 4 teams ahead of them and the 4 teams behind them all moving, with Alabama staying at number 5.
See, what Bama needs to have happen is they need to have like Ohio State lose to Penn State, and then have Penn State lose to like Wisconsin or Minnesota in the Big Ten title game. Because if that's the case, then no one. I mean, Ohio State would probably still make it, but then all of a sudden you're not going to have
The conference champion.
You're not going to have Penn State. You're not going to have one of those teams make it, and you're going to need to hope that maybe Oregon or Utah have a slip up or something like that. That's the only chance Bama have. Bama needs the Big Ten title winner to be either Minnesota or Wisconsin, I think, because either way, Penn State or Ohio State, they'd get in for that spot. So Bama's got a lot that needs to happen for them to make it in. And I guess the final team that I think has, Minnesota, that's a tough one. I still don't think, they're in the driver's seat. I don't think they really have a chance. Oklahoma, let's just say that Penn State loses this week to Ohio State, they're done. Let's say, obviously you got Georgia, they lose to LSU, they're done. Oregon, Utah, something might happen. Oklahoma, they still have to play the rest of the year. TCU, that's whatever, but they finished the season on the road at Oklahoma State, who's now, I believe, ranked 21st. I want to say, ranked 21st, so that'll be a quality win. Then they're going to finish the year likely playing, I want to say, it's going to be Baylor at this point. So they're going to get to play Baylor again, it's going to be a rematch. Baylor's going to be ranked in the top 15. Again, a lot's to happen in front of them, but you're going to have Oklahoma finish the year with 2 top 20 wins. Again, they have to have a lot happen their way, but do you think there's any way Oklahoma can potentially still make a long-distance shot? Because I think Brady said it last week, they have top 4 talent. I legitimately think Oklahoma could compete against any of these top 4 teams, which is why I'm upset, because I want to see Jalen Hurts in the playoff more than anything. But they're going to need, I think, more help than Bama. But, obviously anything can happen, but Oklahoma still has a slight chance.
No, they absolutely have a chance, because here's what happens. You look at the top 9 right now. Ohio State beats Penn State. They drop. There goes Oklahoma up a spot. One of those Pac-12 teams has to lose. There's Oklahoma up a spot. And if they win the Big 12, they probably jump Alabama too. If LSU beats Georgia, they can jump a spot. So there is, again, everything is still in front of Oklahoma, and it's very, very possible they could find themselves either right at 4 or just outside it by the end. So, again, they have more than a slight chance, I'd say. They're still, they don't control their own destiny, but they can absolutely make something happen.
Exactly. There are 2 teams at least in the pack in the top 10. There are 3 teams in the top 10 that have to lose. There are 3 teams that still have to lose. So even if they're going to end up right outside of the top 4 spot, like Lyle said, if they're not coming in exactly at 4 and they're coming out just outside, they're going to match up with Alabama probably, and they could be a conference champion. And that's the pusher for me. Because
I was going to say, because Lyle's scenario does help, because Penn State loses, you drop them, so then Oklahoma goes up to 8. Oregon, Utah, one of them loses, you drop them up to 7. Georgia loses to LSU, blah, blah, blah. You move them up to 6. Alabama, they're kind of irrelevant, so you could put them at 5. Yeah, let's say Oklahoma, they come out, they absolutely annihilate TCU, they absolutely annihilate Oklahoma State, and then they absolutely annihilate Baylor, whereas Oregon, Utah, Utah wins 20-17 in a very close game. And it's essentially going to come down to, are you taking Oklahoma, where essentially for the most part all season, they've been blowing teams out. They had one slip up to, Kansas State, whereas, you have Oregon or Utah. None of them have quality wins. They struggled against one another in the Pac-12 title game. It could be Oklahoma that gets that final edge.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But there's one thing that we haven't really talked about, and I know we're probably pushing time with this. The one thing we haven't talked about is, what happens if Georgia goes into the SEC title game and beats LSU?
Then everything
exactly, because that changes a lot of things too. Because I think LSU's still in.
They are. LSU will stay in. If they go into the conference title game undefeated and lose by a score, they're still in.
Which is why I think it would ultimately likely, assuming everything follows suit, it would be Georgia, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State. And then unless, again, Ohio State then loses to Penn State, and then
wait, is that in order what you'd have the final 4 be? Oh, okay.
If that's how it happens, my guess would be the Final 4 would be Ohio State, Clemson,
Georgia, LSU, probably.
Yeah,
because the head-to-head, you have to.
So it would probably be that, but then it also seems tough to drop LSU that much. But maybe LSU drops to 3, Georgia goes to 2. Maybe they push Clemson from 3 to 4, which I think that would actually might be the most logical scenario, because again, I can't see LSU dropping from 1 to 4.
All right, that's fair.
But again, that's when we have chaos, which is what I need. I crave it. I need this chaos. But hey, those are all the possible scenarios that can happen.
We're gonna get chaos.
I think Michigan at 13. There's still
no.
Now, what if Michigan beats Ohio State?
No,
not gonna happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
2 losses.
What would be ideal? What would be ideal just as a college football fan? I mean, Michigan beating Ohio State would be cool, but Ohio State beats Michigan. Michigan has that one more loss. Then SC and Michigan play in the Holiday Bowl. I think that'd be a fun matchup.
Now, what happens here? Because I'm trying to look. Well, I was going to say there's still a slight chance Michigan could be in the Big Ten title game.
Is there?
Well, I mean, you're going to have to ask Penn State to beat Ohio State, and then you're going to have to ask Michigan to beat Ohio State, and then you're going to have to ask Penn State to lose to Rutgers. So
no,
there's still a shot. You're telling me there's
if
a
you
chance.
ask nicely, they might say
yes.
So, but then again, how would that work if all of a sudden there's a 3-way tie at 7-2 at the conference top?
It then goes to non-con. And then if that is the same, then it goes to point differential.
So maybe Michigan doesn't have a chance, but that's okay. But those are our college football playoff scenarios. And obviously, the more scenarios, the better, because that makes this more fun. If this was like plain cut and dry, guys, where there's 4 teams and maybe a 5th team can come in, that wouldn't be fun. That wouldn't be exciting. It's fun to say these teams have a chance, even though they might not, because it's something to talk about.
Yep.
Now, here's something to talk about, guys. This whole Tua Tagovailoa situation. He is done for the season. So I had a few questions on our doc. But my first one I want to ask you guys is, why in the world, in a 4-touchdown game against Mississippi State on the road? Well, I mean, first off, I think Tua shouldn't have even played in this game because I think they would have beaten Mississippi State regardless. But up 4 touchdowns. Now, Nick Saban came out and he said, we were going to take him out. We just wanted to get a final 2-minute drive going to practice, which is stupid. You could do that in practice. Why was Tua in the game? Why?
It's tough. I mean, so I also saw something that said Tua wanted to go back.
I saw that too.
And you know what? If he wants to go back in, fine. I mean, what's disappointing is I think people are gonna get mad at Nick Saban for it. I don't think you can. Overall, you can't just expect him to get hurt, though, either. But you do have to be cautious with the fact that he's been hurt this year. I'm fine with him playing in the game. I'm fine with him playing the last drive. It's just a tough situation, just altogether.
Yeah, and my thing is, look, he was never not going to start. This is a conference game. Bama still needs impressive wins, especially with the one loss. He was going to play.
Mississippi State's not bad either.
No. But when you're up 4 touchdowns, you start to think about it. And like Josh said, I don't really think it's Nick Saban's fault, especially if Tua said, do not yank me from this game. I want to keep playing. That's why it's so tough.
I think it was smart of him to play because you can't, like you said, you can't predict he's going to get hurt. You can't say, I'm going to put him in and he's going to dislocate his hip and have a similar injury to Bo Jackson. Different magnitude, but very similar. I like it because this is the perfect game for you to test out your 2-minute drill against a real SEC defense. Because what do you have? Who do they have next week? You say Western Carolina. Western Carolina. Sorry to the Eastern Carolina.
Wildcats?
Sure, Josh. Keep telling yourself that and keep telling us that because we got no idea. They play. That's who they play. So you're not going to get a true test of a real SEC, real competitive
Catamounts.
defense. Yeah, same thing.
His name is Paws.
That's amazing. Is he a good boy?
Probably.
They all are. So that's the thing is I like the idea of him going in a situational drive because this is different than running a 2-minute drill in practice. Because you're not going to get hit in the mouth in a 2-minute drill in practice. You're not going to have to adapt to different things that are going on. I like Tua going in for this 2-minute drill because say he's healthy, say he plays moving forward, and say they make it to a spot in the playoff where it comes down into a 2-minute drill. You're going to want him to have that repetition and that practice against a real team instead of a Western Carolina football team.
Now this is going to be interesting with Tua because there's been a lot of coming out saying that he could be done for his career, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. He's going to be out, I think it's 3 months until he can finally have any sort of activities. If you're Tua, now obviously I think this is going to hurt his draft stock. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 to 10 pick anymore. Maybe he'll slide out of the first round. If you're Tua, do you just spend all offseason just rehabbing, getting healthy, and do you come back to Bama for a season and then try to help your draft stock? Or do you just exit now, hope that you can get picked in the mid-first round, late first round, maybe second, and then not risk an injury next year? Because, again, it's one of those things where I don't think he's going to be a top 5 to 10 pick anymore unless some team just says, yes, you know what, screw your injury history, we'll take a shot. What do you think Tua should do?
He has draft insurance, and that's a real thing. And he got that, and that was brought up by the NCAA, and I think it was started by the NCAA last year or 2 years ago, where the NCAA, they have a select group of agents that will deem if this injury happens at this point in your career and you are going to go to the draft and you're draft eligible and you decide you're going to put your name in the draft, you are projected to be the number 1 pick. A top 3 pick was Tua. Therefore, if he falls to the mid-first round, he can sign whatever that late 30 whatever draft pick overall contract. However, have the quote-unquote insurance policy to pay and make up what would be a top 3, top 5 pick salary.
Wait, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know this. Well, where was this? Man, when did this come
I'm
about?
almost positive it was like a year ago.
Oh man, too bad that wasn't around for Jalen Smith.
Yeah.
But, that's crazy. I didn't know that. That's cool for him. But I was gonna say, between Josh and I, who wants to go first on this? I know we kind of stand on the same page for the most part.
Go
But,
ahead, yeah.
My 2 cents, Tua, no, you should not go back to school. And because if Tua goes back to school, he will likely use the entirety of the year to not play. He'll just train, get healthy, rehab, and then enter the 2021 draft. First off, Tua's a great quarterback. Let's get that out of the way right now. If he enters the 2021 draft, I personally would have him number 3 on the QB chart for who's getting drafted where. I think Trevor Lawrence is ahead of him. I think Justin Fields is ahead of him. Additionally, with that, I've seen a lot of tweets that even if Tua makes a full recovery, surgery goes perfect, he has no setbacks, he's still going to deal with some really bad arthritis, and especially early in his career. That stuff lingers around. It's not like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with that for a game. It'll go away next week. That stuff really, really lingers around. Therefore, Tua, go get your money now, because the hard truth is this might be the highest his draft stock ever gets. If he goes back to Bama and heaven forbid he gets hurt again, then things really get tough. So he gets drafted at the end of the first round, let's say. 2 things happen. Number 1, let's not act like first round money, even end of the first round money, is chump change. That's still over $2 million bucks a year Tua will be getting. Additionally, let's think about some of the teams that might be drafting at the end of the first round. The Patriots, the Packers, the Saints. You know what some trends are there? 3 teams, really well run, successful franchises that have Hall of Fame quarterbacks that are going to need a successor at some point in the near future. So say Tua goes to one of those 3 teams, he sits for 2 years, he really gets healthy under an NFL-ran coaching staff and training staff, and then he takes over for one of those 3 guys, continues to play a really high level of football if he's healthy, and then he goes and gets his big contract. I think he's got a better bet to do that with a professional coaching staff than to go back to school and just rehab.
So looking at the numbers right now and what I was saying a minute ago, top 5 pick in the draft, the salary is $29.2 million. This is on average from the 2019 draft class with a signing bonus of 19.2, whereas the 25th to 32nd average is $11.8 million. So that's a $25 million difference between the first pick and the 32nd pick in the draft. So get your money, kid. You're projected top 5. You're gonna get that top 5 money.
Well, no, he's probably not going to be drafted top 5. Is what I'm saying. He's probably going to be at the end of the first round.
He was projected top 5. However, with the insurance policy kicking in, he'll get the top 5 money.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I think kind of what Lyle says. I think he should bite the bullet, accept whatever his draft stock is currently, and just go into the draft with that. He should focus on his recovery in the offseason, especially if he gets drafted, like Lyle says, by one of those teams toward the bottom half of the first round, somebody who probably has a quarterback already, somebody that's going to retire within the next several years, and let Tua just get better. He should only go back to Alabama if he is not confident in where he stands as a football player right now or in his recovery. Because Lyle and I were talking before the show. Isn't there a chance that he could decide to go back to Alabama and just not play at all?
I think that's what would happen.
Yeah. That's a realistic opportunity too, is just to go back, just train and get better, stay in school, and then just not play any football.
It'll be interesting to see because, I mean, he's got such a bad injury history now. It seems like he has not been healthy for a year. So it's just a matter of where would these GMs feel comfortable taking him. I personally would not touch him in the first round, especially with this. I mean, again, he's had like the ankle injuries, the knee problems, the hip injury. I would take a chance with someone else. I mean, now if you can get him like in the second or third round, if he's there, by all means take him. I just don't know unless I'm like trading up. I don't know if Tua's worth that risk.
Really? I mean, okay, I'm just asking you, like, as a Saints fan, let's say end of the first round and Sean Payton and crew decide, let's take a chance on Tua, and in 2 years,
I'd be fine with that.
That's what I mean.
I don't think he's fallen to the third round.
Because you're not asking him to be a starter. I'd be fine with
I
that.
don't think he falls late second round.
No, I think he gets drafted at the end of the first. But And again, I think it's by one of these teams that are going to need a successor to Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or Tom Brady. And it's like, who a better option than to take the risk on a guy like Tua, who is supposed to be a top 5 pick, and you just hope he gets healthy. He doesn't get healthy. It's not like it was a number 1 pick. It was an end of the first round type pick.
I don't know what you're talking about. The Packers already have a pretty great quarterback successor.
Annie Wilkins.
Well, so we'll have to see what happens with Tua, but that will be something interesting to follow. But it does bring us, guys. It's been a while. The over-under. Always take the under.
Ooh. If that's how you live your life, Blake, that's not how you live your life.
I know. All right, boys, I chopped up 3 delicious, juicy questions for
Blake's
you
the
guys
guy that's
right
out here doing a 38-team parlay.
I'm like that one guy that just, the 23-year-old that won $600,000 on some like 14-team parlay.
Yeah, Blake's the one that does a 32-team parlay and loses his first bet, which is whether the coin toss is going to be heads or tails.
the Super Bowl, heads or tails, and it's tails. Ah, dang it.
Coin
All
lands
right, guys.
upright.
Here are 3 over-under questions for you guys. Let's get things underway. Over-under on SEC teams that'll finish the season in the top 12, and over-under of 4. The top 12.
In the top 12. So teams to consider here, just to let everybody know. We're considering LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Auburn. Well,
I guess I should say the over-under is 3.5, meaning do you think that'll be?
There are 5 teams ranked right now, and I'm going to take the under.
I'm going to go over.
Really? Who?
Well, I'm gonna say Florida beats Florida State, then they're 10-2, and they just stick. And then there's the other 3 with Bama, LSU, and Georgia.
I'm going the over. Over 3.5.
Yeah.
With the 4.
Correct.
I'm going over.
All right, I'm going to go with the over as well. Currently, Anthony Gordon is leading the country with 4,314 passing yards. The next closest is Joe Burrow with under 3,700. Then after that, the next closest is Brock Purdy with 3,200. So Anthony Gordon has him by a wide margin.
Arizona native, Brock Purdy.
Under on Anthony Gordon to finish the season with 5,000 passing yards. So he's essentially going to need about 350 yards over. I assume he has 2 games left. I mean, I don't know.
He does.
Yeah.
All right, so they have 2 games left. So he essentially has to have 350 yards in each game.
I'm going to take... Oh, man, it's tough. I'm going to take the over, but just barely, and I think the reason why is because I think he throws for more than 400 yards against Oregon State this upcoming weekend, and I think he pushes 350 potentially against a Washington team that I still think has a decent defense. So, wait a minute. That's a Friday game at 2 p.m. on November 29th?
Well, yeah, it's the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. They always have those kind of interesting games.
That's weird.
Now,
though.
for what it's worth, guys,
I'll take the over.
he has not thrown 350 yards only once all season.
Yeah, and especially against Oregon State, I'm taking over 400.
Yeah. Over.
Who are the last 2 opponents?
Oregon State and UW.
I'm taking the over.
I'm going to go with the over as
like
well.
the over.
I like that.
Hold on. 1 second. If Jaden Daniels can throw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns against Oregon State's defense and put up 34 points, Anthony Gordon can absolutely do the same thing, if not more.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to go with the over. I think he hits it. I think he can get to 5,100 or maybe 5,200. Final over-under, guys. The number of Alabama wide receivers that they currently have that'll be first-round picks, over-under of 2.5.
This year's draft or total?
So that's a tough thing because I don't know if all of them are going to come out this year. There's a chance 1 or 2 might come back.
Waddle can't. Waddle's a sophomore.
Oh, he's a sophomore, so there you go. I heard something where like all 3 of them this year could be, so I guess there you go. So over-under 2.5. They'll eventually be first-round picks.
Yeah, with Smith and Judy and... Oh, man.
Najee's a running back, isn't he?
Yeah.
Najee Harris is running
So
back.
the ones that I would consider, obviously, are Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Jerry Jeudy. Is it a 2.5?
Yeah.
2.5. You know what? If they can get the over on this, that is pretty darn impressive. And I'm going to take the over because I think that I think that Jeudy is the highest pick out of all of them, even though Devontae Smith has more yards and touchdowns this year. I think Jeudy is the overall better receiver. Smith is close, and then I think that both Waddle and Ruggs are extremely reliable too. If they were on another team, they would be the number one guy by far. But I'll take the over.
Yeah, Jeudy and Ruggs are basically locks for first round picks. Most people have Ruggs around the mid-teens in mock drafts, so those two are overs. And Devontae Smith's like the one he's really good. He's the one I'm a little less high on, but I think once Jalen Waddle kind of has it as he's going to be the guy next year, people are going to see him as a first round pick. So it's going to be, I think those three. I think Smith's still a day 2 pick, but I'm going to go over.
And Smith is the team leader in receiving yards by like almost 200.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, they're all really good.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to take, what was it, 2.5?
2.5.
For this year or for future?
Just in general. Future, yeah.
Over.
Because Waddle's only
Over, because you're going to look down the depth chart because there's some guy somewhere who isn't playing yet, but he's really good, and he's going to explode next year, so he'll be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with over. The fact that 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to look back and say, oh my goodness, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and Jalen Waddle all were on a team together at one point.
Now, a young man named Jaleel Billingsley only has 1 reception this year. He's a tight end. I'm rooting for him because he's got a great name.
Jaleel Billingsley?
What about,
Jaleel Billingsley.
What is this, Major Tennyson?
The coldest to ever do it, Crawford.
Major Tennyson.
What a name.
They also have a running back named Chadarius Townsend. That's a sick name.
Fantastic. All right, but that does wrap up this edition of the Over Under. Let's go answer some Q&A questions for a few minutes, guys.
All right.
Let's do this.
Are you going to open up? Never mind. Don't even put that out in the universe.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right. Well, Cotton99 wants to know, who is the worst Power 5 team?
Yours.
Oh.
Well, it sure as heck is not Oregon State anymore. You know what? Worst Power 5 team. I hate to do it, but you know what? I might say, you know what? Rutgers is 0-7 in conference. They're 2-8 over. I'm still gonna go with Rutgers, but man, Northwestern guys. Northwestern is pretty close this year. Really disappointed in what the
They couldn't even
Wildcats
cover against UMass. They are the worst.
yeah, I'm going Rutgers.
They didn't cover against UMass.
It was a 40.5-point spread, and they won by 39.
Worst Power 5. Worst.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
Georgia
trying to
Tech is
find-
pretty bad.
I'm trying to find just like the straight up rankings 1 through 138.
And pick the lowest one.
Yeah.
Well, I know they're not a Power 5. I got to say this. UMass is just so bad. They are so bad. I know. Again, they're not Power
Old
5.
Dominion's bad.
If this was the
UTEP's
worst,
bad.
if this was the worst team in just FBS, it would be UMass by far.
What about Akron?
Akron's bad, but I think
Akron's 0-10.
Yeah, but that's because UMass somehow beat them. I think UMass is by far the worst. They
I
are
think
bad.
Akron's. If UMass beat
so
Akron,
bad.
I'm taking Akron.
They're so bad. All right, well, Brady looks up that. We're going to go to the next one. Now, this is interesting, guys. Gator King, he says, Blake, why are Ohio State fans mad at game day for going to them? I looked this up. I guess Ohio State this week is boycotting game day.
What?
Because of ESPN's bias towards the SEC. This is actually a thing. Ohio State fans are boycotting college game day, who are going to Columbus, Ohio, because they don't like Ohio State and they are biased towards the SEC. This is far too true.
This is far too stupid.
That is right up there.
It is not too late to switch to game day to beat Arizona State this week. We will gladly and graciously accept.
That is right up there with Alabama fans saying that they should fire Nick Saban after the LSU game. That is one of the dumbest things I've heard this year. They're the number 2. I didn't know that was a thing, but now that it is,
it's a
I'm
thing.
genuinely
check Twitter.
upset. I'm genuinely annoyed.
Yeah, that ain't great. Like what? Like
Hold on,
What
let
do
me
you want?
check Twitter. What do I even search?
Just Ohio State game day.
I found my
Alright.
answer for the last question, by
Yes,
the way.
Brady?
South Alabama.
Oh.
They're 1-9.
They're not Power
Yeah, but
5.
that's not Power 5.
Well,
No,
he's
Power
talking
5.
about all FBS teams.
all FBS
Yeah.
is Akron. They're the only team
Oh.
that does not have a win.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's move
Power
on to the
5,
next
I'm
one.
going Arkansas. They're 2-8.
Let's go to the next one while Josh scavenges through Twitter. Lyle, this is a great question for you. This comes from Walker Parson. He says, do you think that Bo Nix has the potential to be a good quarterback next year or later on? Now, he did just say a good quarterback.
All right.
Heisman winning quarterback.
After a year of play, yes, it's possible. Not this year, but maybe next year.
Somebody known as at JBook37 on Twitter, who is a contributor for some Ohio State site. Also, his Twitter header is Sedona, Arizona. Very cool. Posted a poll
Fiesta Bowl.
that says, Ohio State fans, this Saturday, Fox Big Noon setup will also be in Columbus, as well as ESPN's College Game Day. Which one will you go to? 5,053 people voted, and 92% picked Big Noon stage with Urban over Game Day stage with Herbie. That's crazy. Is it really that they think that there's a bias toward the SEC from ESPN? No,
Yeah,
no comment.
if anything, wouldn't it be? It should be CBS more than anything, right? CBS is the one that does all the SEC games. Like, what is?
Who knows?
Legitimately, the top college football personality at ESPN went to Ohio State.
Well, hey, Ohio State fans, y'all are something else.
That's like saying NBC is biased toward Notre Dame. Never mind.
Sam Parker wants to know, who is your favorite non-Power 5 team?
Do you want to say it all together, or no? Josh has a new one.
UC Davis, baby. Nah. Currently this year, I don't know. I like rooting for Memphis. I've kind of rooted for Memphis the last few years. Boise State's always fun to watch, but maybe when they're not playing ASU, I'll take San Diego State.
So you've
The Fighting Brandon Heiklands.
you've ousted yourself from the mock train.
Yeah, you're making a mockery.
He
of
must have
yourself,
gotten
Josh.
off.
Oh, wait, so are we still talking? Are we talking non-Power 5? Or are we gonna go FCS?
Now, this is just a non-Power 5.
Ooh,
This could be anything.
but Davis though.
Ah.
My Ags.
Yeah, that's right. He can take Davis.
I'll mock
That's
the
fine.
world with y'all.
Ah, wonderful. Let's all mock the world together. This comes from, I want to say, oh yes, Cool Joe.
Cool.
Cool
dude.
Joe. He says, should Texas fire Tom Herman if they go 6-6 this season? So currently they are 6-4. Their final two games are at Baylor and at home against Texas Tech. So there's a chance that they can go 6-6 to finish the year. Should they fire Herman if that's the case?
No.
Here's what's going to happen if they do. Him and Willie Taggart are going to come together and form a super team and win 3.5 games next year.
To win 3.5 games. Tom Herman just won a New Year's Six Bowl last year.
Doesn't matter, Lau.
Yeah, no, he's not getting fired. He just beat Georgia in a New Year's Six game last year.
That sounds like an overreaction similar to what SC fans were doing when they lost in the Cotton Bowl to Ohio State after winning the Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl the year before, and everyone's like, oh my God, we won 10 games and lost to Ohio State? Fire Helton.
He gone.
Like, people don't realize that SC was 5-7 last year. People have hated Helton since day one, which I have never understood.
They should have
Well,
kept Coach O.
Well, I think
you can't say that.
Well,
Go Tigers.
You can say it now. You can.
it's like the Brian Kelly thing too, and that was worse 3 years ago when they were 4-8. But I mean, it's a good thing they held on to him because now they've had they've had 2 straight 9-win seasons on their way to probably a third. Like, yeah, I mean, you can't win a national championship every single year. It's just not realistic unless you're Alabama.
I think
You
there's.
can't?
I think
Even
there's-
they can't.
I think there's no chance of Herman getting canned.
I think he stays, but I think he's officially on like the hot seat. Whereas next year, if they don't get off to a hot start, he could be in trouble. Because I mean, they had a good season last year, but now it's like they're back to square one with they should have moved on this year. They should have been another 10-11 win season, but 6. Let's move to Twitter now. A few questions to wrap things up. Mitchell Hall says, "Do you think Chase Young?" Now it says I guess we'll go with is better than Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney. I assume this is back when they were in college. So do you think Chase Young, the college version, is better than the Myles Garrett or the Jadeveon Clowney version in college?
I don't know. I mean, Chase Young is pretty unbelievable, but Myles Garrett was really good too, and now he's gone on to bigger and better things, hitting people in the heads with their own helmets.
It's Mason Rudolph's fault.
Some NFL blitz stuff right there.
That's not.
I think the
let's
better
not
question.
go there.
I think the better question or more realistic question would be: is he better than Nick and Joey Bosa?
Yeah, I like that. That's a better comparison, I think. And
Hey, it's still a great question from Mitchell.
no, I'm not disparaging the question
Thanks,
at all.
Mitchell.
I'm just saying I think you can compare those a little bit better. But in terms of a player whose impact is felt maybe a little bit more, maybe I'd go with Chase Young.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Jadeveon Clowney did at South Carolina, and obviously he was the number 1 pick. But okay, because
And he had that big
The
hit.
hit against
well, I was going to
Michigan in
say
the Outback Bowl.
what I was about. Thank you. What I was about to
You're
say
welcome.
is he was really known for that one huge hit in the bowl game.
See,
but
that's
in
what
reality,
I always think about too, Lyle, is whenever I think of Clowney in college, I think of the one
Yeah.
play. I don't think of anything else. Like, that was the first time I really remember seeing Jadeveon Clowney's name and him over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Was the one hit.
But then when you look at it, I mean, his sophomore year he had 23 and a half tackles for loss. So yeah, I mean, Chase Young in terms of those guys, man, I would say better than Myles Garrett. Clowney, it's close. They're probably similar, and I think Young's probably a little bit more athletic. In terms of the Bosa brothers, like, I'll be honest, I think Chase Young is going to be that good in the NFL that, like, Nick Bosa is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year in an absolute landslide, and I think Chase Young might be a tad better. That's how good I think Chase Young's going to be.
All right, this comes from hashtag 5 is more than 2, Chad. I don't really know what that is. That might be
it's
some.
mathematically
You never worked
correct.
at
That
Math,
might be
Blake.
some inside joke with whoever Chad is, but he says, "Hey guys, is
Hey.
it true that Jake Fromm is not only the best college quarterback of all time, but also the most handsome?"
That is true. That is true.
I actually want to see what Jake Fromm looks like. Give me a sec.
Do you
while
not
you-
know what
while
Jake
you're-
Fromm
while
looks
you're-
like?
Sorry, I don't know what he looks like, Josh. I don't study the looks of college
Well,
football
let's
quarterbacks.
go
I
with.
feel like
I
you should
studied
know what
the
he
film.
looks like.
Oh,
Well,
he's
Blake-
actually, he's a very good-looking man. Wow.
Somebody should update Justin
should-
Herbert's Google photo because he's literally like 13
Well, Blake,
in this photo.
Blake, you should look at Jake Fromm back in. You should look at him back when he was in the Little League World Series. That's when the potential really starts around the 13-year-old
Yeah.
age.
Hey, can we
he's
not
a-
talk about 13-year-olds? That'd be great.
He's
Okay.
a great-looking man.
It's funny. Is Jake Fromm the best quarterback of all time? Yes, except when it comes to being the best quarterback on your own team, which last year he was not.
He only has 16 touchdowns this season.
Yeah. Yes.
But he is the most handsome, I would say. All right, guys.
the running back is DeAndre Swift.
You think he's handsome?
You know what, Blake?
You
I
know
gotta
I
be
think's
honest. I
handsome?
don't know what DeAndre Swift looks like.
Two
Oh,
of you
well.
in that room, I think, is handsome.
Oh, thank you, Brady. Final question. This
Not talking
one
about
comes
you.
from Andrew Coster. If you guys could go back to any of the previous playoff rankings and swap out any team for a team you thought should have been in that year, which team would you swap and why? And I am going to get this one started because I just figure I might have one of mine taken from me. So, for the reason none of you guys can take mine from me, and there goes my mic. I'm going to wind the clock back all the way to 2014, the very first college football playoff rankings, when TCU, they got ranked 6th to end the year. They fell out 3 spots after winning. And I believe this is back before they had a title game in the Big 12, so that probably helped, or was the reason for it. But TCU literally didn't lose.
Wasn't
And
it last year the first Big 12
and they,
title
and
game?
they fell. It was either last year or the year before. TCU, they didn't lose, and they fell 3 spots out of the rankings. That was a great TCU team. But looking back at these teams back in 2014, it's tough to see who you would have left out because you had Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State. So it's like, I mean, who would have had in? But the fact that TCU fell out, that was. I mean, a lot of people say to this day they got shafted, and I think they do. But that's who I'm going to go with for mine.
I don't know if you can say that word on radio, but that's okay. For
I've
me,
checked the book and you cannot.
okay.
You can't say shafted.
So say it again. I'm going to also not great to put that on Twitter too. I am picking the 2016 college football playoff, and I am subbing out Washington for USC because the only reason USC was not in the playoff that year was because they just didn't play in the Pac-12 championship, and yeah, I guess that's their own fault, right? But they convincingly beat Washington. Washington got convincingly smacked by Alabama. And USC ended the year beating Penn State in a huge Rose Bowl game.
I was there.
And then finished third in the rankings. They finished either second or third in the rankings that year. So, I thought SC was just way better than UW. So I would pick SC in 2016.
If they just won or lost one less game at the start of the year, they probably would have been in. Because if they had played UW in the Pac-12 championship that year and beat them, they would have been in with 2 losses.
Absolutely. Well, there's a reason why SC went to the Rose Bowl and the number 2 team in the Pac-12 because the winner went to the college football playoff, and the runner-up in the conference, Colorado, didn't go to the Rose Bowls because the Rose Bowl committee clearly thought that SC was by far better than Colorado.
Yeah. So this is if you could take one team that missed 1 year to put in instead of a team
Yes.
that was in. Man, I don't know. That's tough. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of years that people really got, kind of the wrong end of the stick. TCU was one. Yeah, I mean, the TCU dropping 3 spots was pretty bad. I'll tell you one that I'll tell you all the Georgia fans out there that should not have been in over undefeated Notre Dame last year when you lose 2 games. I'll throw that one out there. But, yeah, the TCU one's pretty bad.
Really, especially the last 2 years, I would not change anything.
Yeah.
I think what would be this is not like an I'm angry they didn't. It's just a what could have been and what maybe should have been. Is throw UCF in the playoff in 2017.
No,
just to see what would have happened.
I would have liked to see it.
To see what would happen. I'm not saying they deserve to be in it. I'm just saying they were 12-0. Yeah, they were 12-0 at the time. Conference champion, going in undefeated, a top-ranked team. Put them in. I wanted to see, but they claimed it. Kind of like USC did with most of theirs, but they claimed it. So I like it.
That's not what USC did.
No,
Anyway,
Bama.
Maybe in 2015, I know that Baylor ended up having, Baylor had like 3 losses in 2015, but they finished number 4 in the rankings, and Michigan State got absolutely smacked by Alabama in the playoff. So that's one that maybe you could... Wait a minute, what year is this?
Yeah, I don't know.
2015. Wait, is this the preseason ranking?
I don't think Baylor finished at 4 with 3 losses, dog.
I was gonna say, what is? I don't think
That's
that's
year was
okay,
this,
Josh. You meant well.
What year?
You meant well.
2015.
Yeah, you meant well. Looking at
2015,
this,
Baylor finished.
That
unranked.
doesn't make sense.
All right, well that's fine. Looking back at TCU this year, guys, their lone loss was 61-58 at Baylor, so they only lost by 3. They then went on to the Peach Bowl to beat Ole Miss 42-3. So TCU, I'm sorry, but you guys got the shaft. Moving on to our pick'ems now. Brady, cue the music, please.
No.
All right.
This is what he gets.
They're just staring at each
There we
other.
go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Harris Highlights pick'ems.
I meant Stanford, by the way, or Oklahoma. Thank you.
Oh, man, you are confusing everyone. Speaking of our pick'ems, let's go to our pick'ems league. You guys, have you joined yet?
It's like
Yes.
It's episode 13.
All right, guys. In first place with 91 points is still Blake Walker. He has a 2-point lead over Don Pablo. So it's going to come down to the final finish there. I have 76 in that league. But let's get on to our rankings, guys. Things are getting interesting. Things are getting very interesting, guys. I must say, in fourth place with 89 points is Lyle.
Boo.
In third place with 96 points is, me. However, I am now only 2 points behind the person in second place, which is Josh with 98. So, Josh, you better watch your back, buddy. I am coming up on you. I'm getting close.
This is what I did last year. I focused too much on beating Lyle at the end, and I wasn't paying attention
I
to
am
Blake.
getting close. And in first place with 104 points
Ooh, wow.
is our executive producer, Brady Klein.
Woo! So Brady had a good week.
He did have a good week. He is now, because I believe last week he was up by 3 or 4.
And this week he's up by
And now
6.
he's up by 6. So we still have a lot that can happen. We have about 11 minutes, boys. We have, I want to say, let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 games to get through in 11 minutes. Let's get things underway and start
there's not
this
very
off.
many good ones this week.
Well, I mean, yeah. But hey, we don't pick the games. If we did, we'd have some good ones. But that's fine. Oklahoma State at West Virginia.
I've got Oklahoma State on the road. I'm starting to buy into the Cowboys late in this season a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny, especially with Tylan Wallace going out, that they continue to play really good football. But I think they're going to go to West Virginia and win.
Oklahoma. Tylen got hurt on my other fantasy
He
team.
did. He
That's
is
tough.
now OFS.
He's on my team too, and he got hurt in this league.
Oklahoma State, and if they lose, Lyle gets a mullet.
Yes. If Oklahoma State loses, he needs to denounce Pistol Pete.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Pistol Pete, though, against... What a battle this would be. Pistol Pete versus a Mountaineer. I love it. UCF at Tulane.
Look, Tulane, you guys really let me down last week. And probably Baseball Brit, too. I've got UCF on the road.
I like UCF.
What should have been the 2017 playoff contender. I'm going UCF on the road.
I'm gonna go with the Green Wave in this one. I think they are going to ride
Green wave yourself into fourth.
momentum and cruise into a victory. I'm Ron Burgundy. Georgia Southern at Arkansas State.
I've got ASU at home.
Arkansas State.
Why is that one Kansas and this one not Arkansas? I'm going with Arkansas State.
I'm going to go with Arkansas State as well. No reason, just because. Texas A&M at Georgia.
Georgia at home. Texas A&M, not a bad team. Pretty decent schedule this year. I just like Georgia a lot better at home.
I think Georgia wins by 12, Bulldogs.
Georgia at home. Shout out to the photographer that got run over last week. Hope you're doing good.
Yeah. Quite
Well,
the
Hey,
actually.
you're doing well. Hey, you got the shot. You got the shot.
She
You got the
was
shot.
knocked out. I am going to go with Texas A&M. Plus the 13.5. I think
Bark,
they can.
bark,
I think they can
Bulldogs.
keep this close. They've been playing good football, but I'm going to go with Georgia to win.
that a
the
thing, Josh?
Someone commented on our show this past week, guys, saying it'd be a lot more interesting and fun if we did it based off spreads, which I could get behind because I mean,
course you
again,
could.
everyone picking Georgia makes sense. But if it was Texas A&M with a 13.5, things would get interesting. But that's too late to do that now. So we appreciate your comment, but we just can't do it at this point. Texas at Baylor.
Well, I think Baylor wins. Texas goes 6-6, and Tom Herman gets the can. Just kidding. I've got Baylor at home. Especially last week. I mean, they really let it slip away. Wouldn't be surprised to see Texas get the win, but I'm starting to like Baylor a little bit.
Yeah, I think Baylor's going to be motivated after blowing the lead, so I got the Bears.
Sick 'em Bears. Baylor.
Baylor blew a 28-3 lead.
You hate to see it.
Did they lose their home opener and not hold somebody in the Big 12 to under 14 points?
I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. But I'm going to go with the Bears. Michigan at Indiana.
Brady, for the glory of old IU, Michigan wins on the road.
Yeah, I got the Wolves.
I think that's the second time I've done that this year.
Wolves?
The Wolverines.
Yeah,
sure.
I've never heard them be
Two
called
very different animals,
Yeah,
actually.
I've never heard them be called the Wolves. A Wolverine's like
Oh, who calls
7
Boise State the Bronx? Whatever, Michigan on the road.
They like pizza. They hit home runs in Boise, hence the Bronx. I don't know. Who cares?
I just got that. That was funny. Indiana, I love you. Indiana, I'm sorry. I'm going Michigan.
I'm going to go with Michigan because
Close
they
one.
are going to win and then beat Ohio State. They win the Big 10 title game and
Chill.
then slide up 5 or 6 or 7 spots into the playoff along with Oregon. SMU at Navy.
Navy is. I'm taking
See,
SMU.
I can't say that. Well, I'll just save it until my turn.
Please do.
Yes.
SMU on the road.
Yeah.
It's a road heavy week. For
Yeah,
me.
not after what we saw last week from Navy. I got SMU.
SMU on the road.
I obviously can't say I hate this school because Navy, thank you very much for what you're doing. But you guys really let me down this week. You guys really let me down.
Hey,
and I can't boo you guys because, again, thank you, Navy, but you really let me down. You really let me down. But shout out to Lyle for making the tweet on the Harris Highlight Show account. I thought that was fantastic. Thank you for using my personal Kawhi Leonard, hey, I guess meme that I do for...
Your personal.
I mean, I'm the
Kawhi-
one... Hey, I'm the one that always does it. That's my thing, and he used it
Oh, I
against me,
forgot.
which I thought...
He made the meme and told Kawhi to say that.
Hey, I'm going to go with SMU because SMU Mustangs are going to blow Navy out of the water.
That's pretty good.
Go Mustangs. All right.
service.
All right, where we go? There we go. All right, boys, 6 minutes, about 8 games to go. Pittsburgh at Virginia Tech.
Yes, this originally said Virginia at Pitt. It's not what's happening.
Oh, it did? Sorry.
It's Pittsburgh at Virginia
Oh,
Tech.
boy, man.
Again,
Sorry.
I think Virginia. I mean, again, it's the ACC. It's just not a super strong conference this year. But you know what? Virginia Tech, they're a 3-loss team. They're 7-3, right? Yeah, they're 7-3.
Sure.
I think we should give them a little bit more respect. I know they're not in the playoff rankings, but they're in the AP poll because that's very meaningful at this point in the season. I'm taking Virginia Tech at home.
Yeah, I like Virginia Tech at home, too.
Virginia Tech at home. The Hokies.
I'm going to go with the
They're
Hokies
going
as
to
well.
do the hokey pokey and turn
Yes,
it all
they've been
around.
playing some good football, Virginia Tech. Louisiana Tech at UAB.
The Blazers hosting the Bulldogs. Woof, woof. If you want to be a dog, oof. You know what I mean?
Oof,
I've got
magoof.
Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, UAB's 5-0 at home this season. I'm going to take
Oh,
UAB.
that's an interesting stat.
Are we scaring you, Lyle?
Fun fact for the listeners out there: Lyle hates dogs.
Hates puppies, even.
I do not
He just
hate.
doesn't like getting
Hates
licked.
He dislikes
puppies.
dogs.
I don't prefer them. There's a
Yes.
difference.
Brady, who's your pick?
It's like I'd prefer not to get stabbed either, but I hate that. All right, I'm gonna go with Louisiana Tech on the road.
As I do every week, I'm going to take the cool logo with the dragon breathing fire. So I'm going to go with the Blazers. Miami at Florida International. Now, guys, I don't know if you guys saw this the other day, but after the Myles Garrett incident, they went back to a previous incident that happened about 10, 15 years ago. And that was between Miami and Florida International back when they played, when they had suspended essentially the entire team. Everyone was fined. Everyone was fired. Yeah, so these two teams, I don't know if they meet regularly, but these two teams have some bad blood going back 15 years.
That's really cool.
Thank
I've
you.
got Miami.
Yeah, I got the U.
You know, in this game, I thought about it long and hard for about 6 seconds. And I came to the simple conclusion.
Conglomerate.
I came to the simple conclusion because Miami. Because why, Lyle? Because why not?
I'm going to go with the U. Tennessee at Missouri.
Well, we've picked what 9 games at this point, 10 games, and all. I think I've had 6 or 7 picks, all road teams. I'm not going to do it for this one. 2 5-5 teams, 2 very mediocre teams at best. But you know what? I like Larry Roundtree. Big fan of Kelly Bryant. He's had a shaky year for the most part. Only 14 touchdowns. He's got like 6 picks. You know what? I'm taking Missouri at home over Tennessee. Sorry, Rocky Top.
Kelly Bryant gets the job done. I like Missouri.
You know, I said this a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again. Josh Schaefer, you'll always be the guy that sits across from me. However, Tennessee is going to lose
Rocky Top, Tennessee.
to the team from Missouri. So, Missouri.
What?
Tennessee's been playing some really good football. They're currently 3rd in the SEC East. Who saw that coming? I didn't. I'm going to go with the Volunteers in this one.
Who thought we'd be here? Not me.
There we go. UCLA at USC.
It's UCLA. I mean,
You're fond of them, aren't you?
they're just not a good team.
Hey, can I get Nate Clapp up in here?
They
1, 2, 3.
up on ASU so bad. I still have no answer for that game. I mean, that was simply embarrassing at the Rose Bowl a few weeks ago.
Oh no! We suck again!
Yeah, that. SC's got a little number 23 next to their name this week, and Trojans are starting to get a little healthy, a little healthier. I'm taking SC by at least 2 touchdowns at home.
Oh, at least UCLA is supposed to have a lot of fans at this game.
It's at the Coliseum.
I know.
Oh,
I know it is.
Right.
Either way, they're going to have a lot of fans because they always do. No, I'm taking SC.
As the great Steve Sarkisian once said, hey guys, fight on.
Please fight on.
Please.
And he said it just like that.
Frickin' frackin' fight on. I'm going USC.
What is Blake taking the Snapchat of me for?
our good pal Henry from our Arroyo Seco days sent me a Snapchat. I don't know if he's listening to the show or not, but he said, bet ASU to cover.
Really?
Well, he's an Oregon Ducks fan, as he was wearing an Oregon sweatshirt in his infamous video, and I quote...
Hey,
I will
Josh.
not say
Sense
that.
all
Hey,
day.
Josh. I'm going to go with the Trojans in this one. Ohio State at Penn State.
As he once said, hello, how was your day?
I got it.
Blake, we have 1 minute left. Would you stop
Yeah,
Snapchatting and host this show?
He said Ohio State,
did he?
Penn State.
I
yeah.
did.
Ohio State.
Buckeyes, they're going to win by 10.
OH. Thanks, Mason. Ohio State.
It's funny because we end up always getting low on time, and we end up spending like a minute and a half on random games like Georgia Southern, Arkansas State, and near the end we end up having to like quickly go through the actual best games. So I'm going to give a quick thing on this. This is going to be the game of the week. This is going to be absolutely fantastic, and I like both of these teams. I hope it's a hard-fought game. I hope both teams have a lot of fun. I hope there's chaos that happens. I hope we come into the show next week saying, man, what do we do now? And that was like
You
perfect
make a
timing.
pick and let's go.
That was perfect timing there. I'm going to go with Ohio State, which brings us to the worst of the worst. UTEP and New Mexico State, the battle of the 1-9s.
The Miners, tink, versus the Ags. Go Ags. Woo!
New Mexico State.
New Mexico State.
I'm going to go with the Ags in this one, but man, someone on New Mexico State came out and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I don't care. Someone on New Mexico State came out and said they hate UTEP. That they hate UTEP. Which brings us to the final game of the week, guys. Oregon at Arizona State.
I've got Arizona State to lose by 2 touchdowns. I think it's close for a majority of the game, but I think the Ducks take it.
I think it'll be close in the first quarter. I'm going to say Oregon 38-10.
Oregon. Bye, everybody.
Take all the points you can get. They're covered by 14. They're not going to cover. But I'm going to go with the Ducks in this one. But that does wrap up this week's edition of the Harris Highlights Show. Make sure to catch the game this week, Saturday night on ABC. It's going to be a good one. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_. We're going to be, I think, recording on Sunday because we have some traveling issues next week. So we might be going Sunday night. We'll have to wait and see. Follow us on Twitter to keep up to date with us. For Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klain, this has been Blake Harris from the Bill Austin Radio Studio at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. And we will see you guys next week.